Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to this Awaken Your Why webinar or workshop. I'm really grateful to have you here because I truly believe that people don't just accidentally end up in workshops like this. Usually, it's when something inside of us starts searching for more. That's the soul beginning to awaken. And maybe lately you've been feeling that too. Maybe you've been feeling a pull for something bigger and knowing that you are meant for more, a feeling that there's another version of you waiting to emerge. Maybe you got a desire for more purpose, more alignment, maybe freedom, maybe more passion or fulfillment. And yet at the same time, maybe there's also a little bit of confusion. Maybe there's fear. Maybe there's some self-doubt. Maybe there is procrastination. How many people here have not experienced transformation? Procrastination. Maybe overwhelm. Maybe a feeling of being really stuck. Maybe losing motivation, um, or not fully believing in yourself. And I just want you to know you are not alone in that. So many people today are disconnected from their why. And when we disconnect from our why, we lose our fire, we lose momentum, we lose direction, we lose clarity, and we lose emotional connection to where we truly want to go. And that is really what this workshop is about, guys. I want to say that tonight is not about motivation. It is definitely not about hype, and it's not about surface level positivity. It's about reconnecting to the deeper emotional driver behind your life. Because when your why becomes stronger than your fear, everything changes. Um, you start taking action differently. You start showing up differently. And you stop needing constant motivation because now you are emotionally connected to your purpose. And I want this webinar to be really interactive. If you want to put something in the comments, or if you actually want to make notes, I'd love to have your reflection afterwards so we can connect in. You guys that are watching this now, I'd really like to connect in with you later and talk about what came up for you. So don't just sort of sit here and listen passively tonight. Now, I want to say that I've got a workshop for you and it's coming. So today I really want you to just sort of really reflect today. And then when you get your workshop, I want you to really deeply connect and write down in the workshop book. I want you to be willing to be honest with yourself because um, sometimes when I ask questions or when I go through these things, it activates something deep inside of you. And honestly, that's where I know that transformation begins. So, guys, you guys that are here, just take a really deep breath in and exhale slowly. And just ask yourself quietly, what if this webinar changes something inside of me tonight? Or when I do the workshop book, maybe tomorrow, maybe a little bit later. Um, you know, what about if something changes that inside of you when you do that? That would be beautiful, wouldn't it? So let's begin. So before we actually discover our deeper why, we first need to understand something really important. Most people are not actually lacking potential. They are not lacking intelligence. They're not lacking talent. They're not lacking capability. Usually, they are lacking emotional connection. And there's a huge difference because people can know what to do and still not do it. How many people know that they should take care of their health? How many people know that they, should follow their dreams, that they should become more healthy, that they should get their business going, they should back themselves, they should become more disciplined, take more action. But why don't they? Or ask yourself, why don't you? Maybe you feel that you're a little bit stuck. So why? Because knowledge alone does not create transformation. Emotions creates movement. And when people lose that emotional connection to their why, they lose potential. That is when procrastination begins. Excuses starts to increase and their fear becomes louder. The comfort zone becomes really comfortable and we start to doubt ourselves. And honestly, I think so many beautiful souls are walking around disconnected from themselves. They're disconnected from their purpose, from their power, from their passion, their deeper truth. They've spent so long time surviving that they forgot what it feels like to truly feel alive. And maybe you are here tonight and you can relate to some of those things. Maybe you've started something before, but you stopped. Maybe you doubted yourself. Maybe you've held yourself back. Maybe fear has become stronger than vision. I've been there, and I'm sure some of you have been there too. But I want you to understand something tonight. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You may simply have become disconnected from your deeper emotional driver because when your why becomes powerful enough, then action changes naturally. You stop needing that constant motivation. You stop negotiating with yourself as much. You stop waiting to feel ready because now you are emotionally connected to where you want to go. And honestly, that's where that massive transformation begins. So the real goal tonight isn't just to find a why. The goal is to reconnect with the emotional fire inside of you that has perhaps been buried underneath fear, underneath that survival, maybe disappointment, maybe conditioning, or even self-doubt. Because that fire, I can tell you, it is still there. Now, I want to take this a little deeper because one of those things that truly creates transformation is emotional awareness, not from fear, not from shame, but from radical honesty. And one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck is because they've often focused more on that temporary discomfort of change than the long-term pain of remaining the same. And I know this personally. Sometimes we stay in, doing unhealthy habits. Sometimes we stay in unhealthy relationships, in jobs that we don't like. Maybe patterns, maybe fear, maybe self-doubt, maybe procrastination, maybe even emotional survival because it feels familiar, even though it hurts us. Because, guys, the human brain often chooses familiar things over expansion. But eventually, there comes a moment where the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. And honestly, that's often where awakening begins. Hence the name Awaken Your Why as well. We start to awaken. So I want everyone who's watching this, whenever you're watching it, I want everyone right now to become really honest with themselves. Because your future is shaped by what you continue to tolerate. And I don't say that to make anyone feel bad. I say it because awareness creates choice. So ask yourself, um, if nothing changes over the next 1 year, where could my current path lead? What you're doing right now? Where would you be emotionally? Where would you be physically, financially, spiritually? What would stay, what would staying disconnected from your deeper why continue to cost you? Would it cost your confidence? Would it cost your energy, your dreams, your health, your joy, your relationships, your own future? And sometimes that awareness can be really confronting, but it can also become incredibly activating because the moment we truly see the cost of staying stuck, something inside of us begins to shift. And what I want to say something really important here. It's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your past were. No matter how many times you have stopped before, it doesn't matter. Your future is still being created by the choices you make from this moment forward. And maybe that's the version of you that you are dreaming of becoming. I'm no longer available for staying small, you know. I don't know about you, but, you know, it does cost a lot if we are stuck, if we continue to do things that we are not really, truly happy with. Because one of the most painful things in life is knowing really deep down you were meant for more. And like everything, it starts with awareness. Because what happens when you become more aware or you awaken, it gives you a chance to choose. And that choice can create really good change. And that change can create amazing freedom for you. Everything in life can change. Now, I want to move into something really powerful because one of the greatest transformations that can happen in life is when we stop identifying us with the old version of you. and begin emotionally connecting to the future version of who we are becoming. And honestly, this is something that changed my own life because so many people spent years reinforcing their old identity, their old pain, their old stories, their old limitations, their old fears. They keep unconsciously introducing themselves to life through who they used to be. But transformation begins the moment we emotionally connect with who we are capable of becoming. And I want everyone here to understand something really deeply. Your future self already exists in potential. She's not out there, or he's not out there. She is already within you. The confidence, the alignment, the self-worth, the courage, the discipline, the freedom, the abundance, the purpose. It already exists as possibility inside of you. But that version of you cannot fully emerge while you continue feeding that old identity of yours. And this is where so many people get stuck. Um, you probably heard yourself sometimes say, or I have heard myself say too, so, I want to change. I want confidence. I want purpose. I want freedom. I want a new job. I want to be this and that. But daily, they continue reinforcing, the fear, the procrastination, the self-doubt. A big one is emotional avoidance. People pleasing. Oh my goodness, that's one of the worst traits. Staying comfortable. And a big one is abandoning ourselves. And I say this lovingly. Your future self cannot emerge from repeated self-abandonment. So what I often do is I visualize, the future version of me. So this is something that I suggest you would do. You visualize the future version of you. That version of you who has healed, who has risen, who has expanded, who is back to herself, who has stopped shrinking, who has stopped apologizing for existing, who has stopped doubting her worth. Start visualizing that. What does she look like and feel like? How does that person walk into a room? What energy has that person had? What does she no longer tolerate? What boundaries has she got now? And how does she take care of herself? And most importantly, what decisions would she start making today? Because your future is not created someday. It's created through repeated daily decisions, minute by minute, second by second. And perhaps one of the most powerful shifts you can make is beginning to ask yourself, what would the future version of me choose right now? Because, guys, that question alone can completely change the direction of your life. And that is a question that I have asked myself. What would the future version of me choose right now? It's a powerful question. I suggest you ask yourself that daily. Now, we're moving into one of the most powerful parts because this is where people have massive breakthroughs in general. And I really want everyone to slow down and become present because most people think they know their why, but often they only know their surface why. Um, and there's a very big difference. For example, someone might say, I want more money, but but money is usually not the real why. So many people say that, um, you know, I want more money. Money is often attached to safety, to freedom, relief, peace, confidence, being able to provide, no longer struggling. The emotional experience behind the goal is usually the real driver. Another person might say, I want to lose weight, but underneath that could actually be that they want more confidence, they want more self-love, they're wanting to feel really attracted again. They want to feel healthy. They want to stop hiding. They want to feel worthy. Do you see the difference? The surface goal is rarely the deepest why. And this is really important because, shallow goals create shallow motivation. But emotionally connected goals create powerful transformation because humans are emotional beings. We are emotional beings. We move towards what we emotionally associate with pleasure and away from what we emotionally associate with pain. So when your why becomes emotionally strong, your behavior naturally starts to change. And this is what I want everyone here really go deep into. When you receive the workshop, there will be some really powerful questions there. And you can think about it now. You're going to get to write down, what do I think I want first? And then ask, why do I want that? And then again, and why does that matter to me? And you just keep going. What does that matter to me? You get the next answer. What does that matter to me? And you just keep going deeper and deeper. This is a process I use a lot with my coaching clients, and I've done that for years because often by the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th layer, that real emotional truth finally emerges. This is where when people start crying, you can see a shift in the body. You can see that people realize they've spent years chasing things that they were actually covering emotional wounds. Sometimes people realize what they truly crave is freedom, love, peace, significance, self-worth, connection, purpose. And honestly, I've got to say this, guys, that this level of awareness, it can really completely change your life because once you discover that real emotional driver behind your goals, you stop operating from that surface motivation and you start operating from a soul alignment. And that's when it becomes really, really, really powerful. Now, I want to talk about something incredibly important because once you understand this and begin understanding not only yourself, you don't only start to understand yourself better, but human behavior in general. Most people believe they make decisions logically, but neuroscience and human behavior show us something very different. Human beings are primarily emotionally driven. Emotion drives behavior far more than logic does. And honestly, this explains why so many people know what to do, but they still don't do it. I don't know if you know anyone like that. I definitely know someone like that, and that's been me many times in my life. Because, we know, people know that they should take care of their body. They know that they should back themselves. They know that they should leave toxic relationships and situations. They know they should take action. Stop procrastinating. Start following your dreams. But often they remain stuck emotionally because behavior is deeply connected to emotional associations. We naturally become move towards things that we associate with pleasure, as I said before, and we move away from things we associate with pain. So, for example, someone may say they want success, but unconsciously, they associate that success with judgment, pressure, criticism, rejection. Rejection is a big one, eh? So part of them actually resists success emotionally. Or someone may want love, but associate vulnerability with pain or abandonment. So unconsciously, they keep protecting themselves. And this is a big one. This is why mindset work alone is often not enough. We have to understand the emotional drivers underneath behavior. And honestly, so many people today are operating from fear, emotional survival, unworthiness, self-protection, old conditioning, past emotional trauma. And we don't even realize it. But the beautiful thing, again, is awareness creates choice. Now, once you become aware of your emotional drivers, you can begin changing them consciously. And this is where emotional leverage becomes really powerful because transformation often happens when the emotional pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of changing. That's when they leave unhealthy situations. Finally, they've had enough. Finally, they start backing themselves. They start taking action and they start reclaiming their power. They stop settling. They stop abandoning themselves. So I want you to reflect honestly. What emotional experiences are you truly craving in life? Is it love? Is it connection? Is it freedom? Is it peace? Is it confidence? Maybe significance? Is it self-worth, safety, expansion? And what emotional fears may secretly still be controlling your decisions? Because your deeper why is often connected to these emotional needs. And once your why becomes emotionally anchored, your behavior naturally begins to change. Now we're going to move into something incredibly powerful because transformation is not only about becoming more, it's actually about releasing what no longer aligns. And honestly, this is where many people struggle because they want a new life. without releasing the old identity. But you can't fully step into a new reality while constantly feeding that old version of yourself. And I want to say this really lovingly. Sometimes the greatest thing holding us back is not the lack of ability. It's attachment to old identity patterns. Patterns like self-doubt, people-pleasing, fear, shrinking, emotional survival, again, procrastination, overthinking, waiting to be ready. I'm not ready yet. And often these patterns once served a purpose. Maybe they protected you. Maybe they helped you survive really difficult experiences. Maybe they helped you avoid rejection or pain. But here's the thing. Survival patterns are not always aligned patterns. And eventually, there comes a moment where we have to decide, is this pattern protecting me? Or is it actually limiting me? Because every next level of your life requires a next level version of you. And one of the most powerful things we can do is consciously decide that we are no longer available for, not for shame, not from self-judgment, but from self-respect. Because you know what? When you raise your standards internally, your life begins changing externally. So I want everyone now to become really honest. What are you no longer available for? Maybe it's hiding your gifts. Maybe it is doubting yourself. Maybe it's delaying the future. Maybe it's staying disconnected from purpose. Maybe it's abandoning your dreams. And I want you to understand, every time you say yes to your future, you must also say no to something that doesn't align. That's how identity transformation happens. It's not through one giant moment, but through repeated decisions, repeated self-respect, repeated alignment, repeated choice of the future self, of the survival self. And honestly, this process can be really feeling very emotional. And maybe something is stirred already in you. Because sometimes we grieve old versions of ourselves. But often what we are really grieving is the time we spent disconnected from who we truly were capable of becoming. So you're going to find in the workshop that I've got some powerful questions. For example, like, what are you no longer available for? So I really, really encourage you to have a look at that when you get that. Now, I want to expand your perspective a little, because one of the biggest breakthroughs people often have is realizing their why is bigger than themselves. And this is powerful, because many people think personal growth is selfish. They think, when I prioritize myself, I'm being really selfish. Healing is selfish. Growing is selfish. Following a purpose is selfish. Setting boundaries is selfish. But honestly, when you heal and when you rise, when you become more aligned, do you know what? Everyone around you feels it. Your energy changes, and your energy is incredibly contagious. The way you speak changes. The way you lead changes. The way you carry yourself changes. The way you love changes. The standards you hold changes. And you know what? People notice, sometimes silently, but they notice. Your children, your grandkids notice, your partner notice, your husband notice, your friends notice, your team notices, your community notices, and often, without even realizing it, your transformation gives other people permission to transform too. Because one of the most powerful forms of leadership, do you know what it is? It's embodiment, not just talking about change. It's actually about becoming the change. And I think many people really underestimate how much impact they are truly capable of creating. Sometimes one person deciding, I'm no longer staying small, it can create absolute ripple effect for generations. And maybe some of you that are listening to this are not only doing this for yourself. Maybe part of your why is your children, your grandkids, your future family, your community. Maybe it's about helping people. Maybe it's about breaking generational patterns, becoming an example. Maybe it's about creating freedom, creating healing, creating leadership. And honestly, those whys can become incredibly powerful emotional fuel because humans are deeply driven by meaning and contribution. We want our lives to matter. We want to feel connected to purpose. We want to know that our life created impact. So I would like you to reflect on really deeply, who would benefit when you rise? Who may be waiting for you to finally believe in yourself? Who may need your story, your leadership, your healing, your courage, your example? Because, guys, sometimes your breakthrough is not only about you. Sometimes your breakthrough becomes the permission slip someone else desperately needs. Now we move into one of the most important shifts of all, identity, because lasting transformation is not only about changing what you do, because it's really about changing who you believe yourself to be. And this is where so many people get stuck. They try to create a new life while still emotionally identifying with the old version of themselves. That version that doubts themselves, that procrastinates, that stays small, that one that abandons the goals, that struggles with consistency, the one who waits to be ready. And honestly, if your identity stays the same, your life usually returns back to familiar patterns because, again, identity drives behavior. And that's why temporary motivation often fades. Motivation is emotional, it comes and goes. But identity, that is powerful. When someone identify us as, healthy, we are a disciplined person, we're confident, we're self-led, we're aligned, we're courageous. What happens is that their behavior naturally starts aligning with that identity over time. So transformation really begins when we stop asking, what do I want? And instead you ask, what do I need to become? Because your future life requires a future identity. And that identity is built through repeated choices, repeated standards, repeated action, repeated self-respect. And I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking about consistency. And I want everyone here who's watching this to understand something really, really important. Confidence is not built before action. Confidence is built through action. Most people are waiting to, hang on, guys, I've got to just plug in the computer. It's running a little bit low, so just hang on a sec and I'll continue on. I don't want it to stop, of course. Let's see. Plug that in and we'll keep going. That should be better. Yes, so back to the confidence, because that's a big one. I often hear people say, but I'm not confident enough. But remember, confidence is built through action. So what most people do is they wait to feel confident first. But confidence is created by proving to yourself repeatedly. I follow through, I'm backing myself. I can do hard things. I keep showing up. And you've got to show up for you. That's how identity evolves. And honestly, every single aligned choice you make is casting a vote for the future version of yourself. Every boundary, every action, every healthy decision, every courageous movement, every time you stop abandoning yourself, you are reinforcing that new identity. So ask yourself, reflect on, who am I becoming? Not who have I been, who am I becoming? Because the future version of you is not created someday. She's created, or he's created, decision by decision, standard by standard, and action by action. And perhaps tonight you are already beginning to become that person, that new being. Now we move into something that changes everything, and that is action. Because honestly, so many people spend years, what do? We keep thinking, we keep planning. That's why planners are so really popular. We analyze everything. We consume information. We study. We do more personal development courses. We wait for confidence. We wait for certainty. We wait for the perfect time. The perfect time. When is it coming? Well, it's now, isn't it? And meanwhile, their life story stays the same. And I say this lovingly. Clarity does not come before action. Clarity comes through action. Movement creates clarity. Experience creates clarity. Action creates momentum. And this is something I've seen over and over again in my job. My job as a coach, in my wellness, in the fitness, in the business, in the teams I'm leading, and transformation. Most people say, oh, once I feel confidence, I'll begin. Once I'm organized, once I've got that new computer, once I've got that new thing, I'll start. But confidence is usually built after you begin, not before. And honestly, I think that overthinking often becomes a form of self-protection, because if we never fully act, we never fully risk failure, rejection, visibility, or discomfort. Think about that. But we also never fully experience growth. And one of the biggest shifts people can make is to understand they do not need perfect certainty. They don't need perfect confidence. They don't need perfect timing, because small aligned actions repeated consistently change lives. One courageous conversation, one healthy choice, one boundary, one workout, one social media post, just one call, one step. And over time, those small actions create confidence, doesn't it? Self-belief, discipline, momentum, expansion, and all of that. And I want you to understand something really, really important. That is that action changes identity. Every time you follow through, you reinforce a new belief of yourself. You send a message to your nervous system. I can do really hard things. I trust myself. I follow through. I am capable. And that changes everything. So I want you to reflect honestly. What action have you been avoiding? I know that you'll get the answer pretty much straight away. It will come to you very, very quickly. What would happen if you stopped waiting? And what is one courageous step you could take immediately after watching this video? Not someday. Actually, maybe you want to do it right now, because the future version of you is built through action. And perhaps one of the most powerful truth of all is action reduces fear faster than overthinking ever will. And now we're arriving at the most powerful moments of this webinar, and that's reclamation. Because this is not just about discovering a why anymore. This is about actually choosing yourself. It's about choosing your future. It's about choosing alignment, choosing growth. It's about choosing the version of you that you know deep down you are capable of becoming. And honestly, so many people spend years disconnected from themselves. So they disconnected from their truth, their vision, their power, their worth, their purpose, and they spend years surviving, waiting, procrastinating, hesitating, abandoning themselves. But I can guarantee that for most people, there comes a time in life where something inside begins to awaken. A moment where the soul quietly says, I was made more than this, for more than this. And maybe for you, maybe many of you, that moment is right now. Because your goal, your why, is not just a goal. It is an emotional declaration. It is really connected to your healing. It's connected to your freedom, your future, your leadership, your impact, your purpose, your self-worth, and your why it matters because you matter. Your future matters. And now I want you to stop thinking from fear for a moment and instead connect to possibility. What could your life become? What could change? What could open and what could expand? Who could you become? Just take a deep breath and really feel this. Because, transformation is not just mental, it is emotional, it's energetic, it's embodied. And this is why declaration matter. Because declarations create identity shifts. So I want everyone to write in the journal, I choose to rise because, and not any surface answers. It's got to be a soul answer. It's got to be a real answer. And perhaps when you write that down, you stop abandoning yourself. Maybe that will become the moment when you stop waiting. Maybe the moment that you start to choose to alignment over instead of being fearful. And honestly, that can really completely change the direction of your life. And now we come to the closing of this webinar. But honestly, I could keep talking about this for so long. I don't want this to feel like an ending. I want it to really feel like a beginning for you. Because tonight was definitely not about motivation. It's about awakening awareness, awakening truth, and awakening possibility, awakening the future version of you. And I truly hope that tonight reminded you something important, that there's more inside of you that you may not have realized. There's more strength, more wisdom, more purpose, more potential. And honestly, sometimes all a person really needs is a moment where they can reconnect with themselves. And a moment where they stop abandoning the future, and a moment where they stop shrinking, a moment where they finally decide, I am ready to rise. And maybe for some of you, that moment might be now, because your future is not created through wishing. It's created through decisions. It's created through your standards, your identity shift, your emotional alignment, your courage, your consistency. And I really want, again, to remind you that it's never too late, You're never too old. It doesn't matter. Age. No matter where you've been, in your past. No matter how many times you failed before, you still have the ability to create change. You still have the ability to reinvent yourself. That's the exciting bit. I honestly believe that the world right now need more people who are willing to heal, who are willing to grow, who are willing to lead, to rise, to live authentically, and to stop dimming their light. So before we finish off, I'd like you to take just a breath again and silently ask yourself, what decisions could change my life starting today? Because sometimes one courageous decision changes everything. And if tonight activated something within you, please don't, ignore it. You need to protect that spark. You need to feed it and you need to take action from it. And I know this, your why is your fire. And when you stay connected to that fire, you become unstoppable. And now, before we close this webinar, I want to say that, again, it wasn't about motivation, this. It was about awakening awareness, awakening truth, possibility, and a future version of you. And I hope it reminded you that there's more inside of you than you may have realized, more strength, more wisdom, more potential, more courage, more purpose. And honestly, sometimes all a person really needs is a moment where they reconnect to themselves, a moment where they stop abandoning their future, when they stop shrinking. Maybe just a moment when you make a solid decision that I am ready to rise. And maybe for some of you, maybe that moment is now. Again, because your future is not created through wishing, it's created through those decisions, emotional alignment, identity shifts. And that's it. What decision could you do today? Could you make today to change your life? I want to remind you and really feel this tonight that you are far more powerful than you realize. You are unstoppable. You have everything you need within you. You've survived 100% of everything life has thrown at you so far. That is power. That is strength. Remember who you are. You are not here by accident. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. And you're becoming everything you were meant to be. You are stronger than you think, braver than you feel, and more capable than you know. Sometimes we become so focused on what's gone wrong, what we haven't achieved yet, where we feel behind, the mistakes we've made, the fear we carry, that we completely forget how strong we actually are. Just for a moment, just pause now and look at everything you already survived. Look at everything you've already moved through. Look at how many times life challenged you, and yet you are still here. So what that is telling me is just that alone says something incredibly powerful about you. Because people often think strength means, never struggle, never falling, never feeling emotional, never doubting themselves. But do you know what? True strength, that is continuing anyway, getting back up, trying again, growing through hardship, choosing yourself again, believing again, opening your heart again. That is strength. And for many of you are stronger than you realize. Some of you have carried pain quietly. Some of you have rebuilt yourself multiple times. I have, many other people have. Some of you have kept going while feeling really exhausted inside, and yet here you are. You're still searching, you're still growing, you still want more for life. That matters because, deep down, I think there's still a spark inside of you that really refuses to give up. And I really want people to understand something tonight. Your future is not determined by your past. Your past might have shaped you, but It doesn't have to define you. Do you know what? Do you know what? You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to reinvent yourself, change career, change direction, heal. You're allowed to dream bigger. You are allowed to choose differently. You're allowed to become someone completely new. And honestly, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply to decide, I'm not done yet. Because life is always responding to your energy, your beliefs, your actions, your standards, and your willingness to rise again. And maybe your next chapter isn't about becoming someone else. Maybe it's about finally becoming more of you, more authentic, more aligned, more empowered, more free. So if there's one thing I want everyone leaving tonight to remember, it is you've already so much within you. More wisdom than you realize, more resilience than you realize, more capability than you realize. And your story is still unfolding. Do you know what? Your best days may be ahead of you. So keep moving forward, keep trusting yourself, keep choosing growth, because step by step, you are creating something beautiful. And honestly, you are really unstoppable when you start believing in yourself. So this is not the end, guys. This is a new beginning. You have the tools and you have the power. Now you can go and create the life you desire. You know, a few things that you got to remember is to honor your progress. Stay inspired every day. Take action with confidence and believe in your beautiful future. And one thing that I know is remember that you're never alone. You can lean on support system communities because there's power in when we rise together. So, keep dreaming, keep believing, keep becoming, because, your best life is waiting for you. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for being here and saying yes to yourself. Your presence and energy means so much, even if you watch this as a recording. You will find that there will be a link you can fill in and you will get a beautiful workshop, book that is absolutely amazing that you can do your reflections in. So again, I am going to thank everyone for being here. And